Hello, everyone. This is Shay Stanley from Little Steps Asia, and welcome back to the Little Steps Insider Series. Today, we are with North London Collegiate School, and we are chatting about everything related to the senior school over in Singapore. We are going to hear all about what nurtures genuine intellectual curiosity. We are going to be talking about passion for subjects, and of course, talking about how to avoid the burnout, which comes with those crucial years as well. So I just want to introduce our guests over at North London Collegiate School. We have two guests with us. We have Sarah Richardson, who's the senior school principal. We're going to hear a little bit more about you, Sarah, in just a sec. And we've got Taishia Holden, who's the assistant principal. Thank you for joining us both. So I do want to just start off just to get to know you a bit better. So maybe, Sarah, if you could just start off and tell us about your journey to North London and how you ended up in that principal position in those crucial years.
Well, I never planned it. So there you go. So I trained as a history teacher, and I've worked in a number of very good schools in the UK. I was a deputy head at the Perth School in Cambridge. And then I took on my first headship of a very small school in North London, Mount House. And then following that, 5 years at Mount House, I applied for successfully the role of senior school principal here in Singapore. So my husband and I are on a post-children adventure, and we've abandoned our 20 and 22-year-olds back in Europe, one in Paris and one in London. They're very happy without us, I'm sure. No nagging parents to deal with. And we're very much enjoying the excitement of being at North London Collegiate. Amazing school, fantastic students, really supportive parents, and some amazing teaching colleagues here. So it's great to be in an environment where there is a great deal of academic ambition, but also ambition in every sort of aspect of school life, and some really, truly bright, articulate young people who are great company and who I think keep us on our toes every day in a really positive way.
Excellent. I love that story about your new adventure over in Singapore. Well, thanks for joining us. And Taishia, you're here with us as well to talk about the senior school. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I started out as an English teacher by trade back in London, and then I thought it would be a good idea to move to a isolated island and just off the coast of South Korea. And so that was Jeju Island, and that's where I started my North London Collegiate School journey. And I've been with North London Collegiate School ever since. That was about 8 years ago. I moved up into a head of English role, first of all, at NLCS Singapore when we first opened during the height of COVID. So that was an exciting journey, opening a startup school during COVID and building an English curriculum. And then I recently moved positions this year into an assistant principal position, overseeing that kind of transition across grade 10 into the diploma program, the sixth form. It's been a journey, but I think what's kept me at NLCS for all of these years is, like Sarah said, emphasis we place on academic ambition. And I've really learned so much from the students that I teach, but also my colleagues who are genuinely really passionate about their subjects. So it's been a great environment to progress in. And yeah, I think I'll be staying here for how many more years?
Forever.
Well, I'm sure you've got lots of stories, especially, from opening until now. And the senior years is such an interesting time because it's where a lot of the big transitions happening. They're preparing for university or wherever else they might go after. There's a lot to basically cater to. So looking forward to having that chat. So I just wanted to start off the conversation with a little bit more background. We've got a lot of families that are looking at senior school, a lot of people in Singapore as well as regionally, globally. Just wanted to paint what a day in the life looks like from a senior year's student perspective.
So, a day in the life is probably pretty full on here, I imagine, in the best possible way. I think it would be fair to say the adults feel that they're never bored in the building, and I'm sure that the students are exactly the same. So we start each day with either a registration with their tutor or an assembly. So it's really important to us that pastoral care, and I think you've already spoken to our pastoral care team, but that touch base with the probably the most important person in the building for them, on a regular basis. And then they head off into a series of lessons. We're not a school where we tell our teachers how to teach. We're not formulaic. We expect our teachers to just be their sort of brilliant individual selves and lead learning in the right way in their classroom. And I think that's, for almost any teacher, that's just sort of music to your ears, because that means that you can go with whatever exciting tangents and tunnels your children take you down, if it's in the interests of progression and learning and intellectual curiosity. And I think that sometimes education, particularly when you're kind of stuck to the rigors of an exam syllabus, can be a little bit more rote learning, because there is a necessity to prepare for an exam. And by following the middle years IB program here, we have much more freedom in what we do. And we really try and stretch and challenge our young people in the right way and make them think and make them question. So they're probably pretty exhausted by the end of the day. We pack in an hour for lunch, and we have lunch 1 and lunch 2. And lunch is often filled with not just lunch, but all sorts of exciting things. And Ty, I'm sure, will probably talk more about academic societies, because that's a really important thing that we do here, but is integral to NLCS. And all the NLCS schools have these exciting opportunities for students and societies. Afternoon lessons followed by a very much more traditional program, I think, of what we call CCAs, co-curricular activities, with music and drama and sport and all of those wonderful things going on, which give our students a bit of balance in their life and make sure that they're not just surgically attached to their books all the time, to have that breadth and be able to go and run around or play an instrument or do whatever it is also hugely important in that balance.
Excellent. And Tashia, you've been with the school since its birth over in Singapore. Was there anything that, that moment where you walk in and you're like, oh, I wish I went to school here? Was there anything that really stood out to you that is special about the senior years for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think academic societies are one of those things, actually. So when we first opened, we opened with students interested in leading an academic society. So of course we said yes. We found them a link teacher. I think it was the Intersectionality Society, looking at feminist students who are interested in looking at intersectionality. And that has just built year on year on year. And it culminated this year, actually, in our inaugural societies fair, and just seeing how many students are now involved in academic societies and how they genuinely form part of their academic identity, and just seeing how many societies that we had, but also how many students were interested in joining one. For me, that was that moment. It was a great buzz in the room. The students went round and found out the full offering of our academic enrichment program. And I kind of stood there and thought, oh, I wish all of these opportunities had been available to me as a student. I don't remember, sitting and having discourse over lunch, about something that I was particularly passionate about or interested in. I think that is something really unique to our school. And I would say that even in NLCS Jeju, we still had the same kind of framework, but students really here at NLCS Singapore, they really take it to heart. Like, it does form part of their academic identity, and they are always looking for ways to, not only meet to discuss what they're interested in, but kind of spread that across the wider school and, contribute to publications around what they're interested in, speak with students in the junior school and share their passion that way. But yeah, I think this year especially, we've seen so many students really take up that offering, and that's been great to see.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So I wanted to get started with something that you both mentioned early, which is healthy academic ambition. It says exactly what it is. But, a lot of parents worry about the stress that comes with the academic pressure, especially in Asia. So I just maybe Sarah, if you could just highlight what is that healthy academic ambition at the school.
I mean, I think it's really important for all of us and especially parents to remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. The students have a long time in education, and what's really important is that they set up, I think, the right sort of attitudes and approaches. And that's sort of two-pronged. It's having the organization. And I think we all know that if you can get into a routine of doing your homework at certain times, making sure that you are reading regularly and all those things which are embedded at a really young age, that essentially sets you up for making things work older, as students get older. My concern is that we do all of these things, I think, with our children as they are young, and And we all sit down with them every night and read Biff and Chip or whatever appalling reading scheme that the school decides that is the appropriate way for you to start. And that gradually, and sometimes too early, I think kind of dies off. And I think, and Ty as an English teacher will be able to talk to this, but I think that children, even when they're 14 or 15, still like to be read to and read with. And one piece of advice that I would always give a parent who's got an ambitious academic child is, whatever they're reading, you should be reading it too. And that should be your dinner table discussion. And your child will get far more out of that than they will get, out of tutoring or, whatever other means you're trying to sort of get ahead with. If they're reading 1984, you read it too. Even if you read it 30 years ago, read it again and sit and talk about it with your child. Ask them questions about it. Get them to justify their opinions. That sort of academic rigor, which is what we try to replicate in a classroom, is so, so important. But it's also about making sure you do continue. And of course, this slips a little bit, and young children often do a musical instrument and a sporting activity, and they go to drama club, and they do all of these things because, of course, their homework is not as rigorous or invasive as it gets when they're older. But it's so important that parents keep at least some of those activities going. It's important to remember we're not just preparing our young people to get into a top university. We're preparing them for life, and employers are constantly telling us that young people need soft skills. The A grades, the A stars, the 7s are not enough. You've got to be a rounded person. You've got to be able to look people in the eye. You've got to be able to have warmth and understand and have emotional intelligence. And you don't get that by being locked in your room, doing additional practice exercises, whatever it is that are only academic. You do that by going to the drama club, playing in the orchestra, being in the netball team, or whatever it is that is your beef. And that's, I'll go back to societies. It's great. I mean, we've got I think it's a Dungeons and Dragons society that I've just signed off a whole load of equipment for. But we've got a young man leading that. He's got younger students coming. He's learning leadership skills. He's learning how to finance his activity. He's learning about communication and how you ask and how you ask in the right way. And all of those things will be so crucial to him in life beyond education. So I think just making sure that young people are supported, there is a balance, that you don't allow them to give everything up because all they're thinking about is their maths coursework. So, so important. But as a parent, also leading by example. Why would your child want to read a book if they never see you read a book? If you're on your phone all the time, don't get me started on phones. That's probably a bad rabbit hole to go down. But you get the idea. And I think it's important that parents understand that they set up those systems and structures for their child, when they're really young, and they want that consistency, and children like rules. I know they say they don't, but really they do. They thrive with boundaries and knowing where they are, knowing what the expectations are, and being realistic.
Well, it's interesting. I've got quite a few kids in the senior school myself as a mom. And this is the first time that tip of reading the same book, because they're very independent at that age, right? And you kind of feel, they're getting on with it. They don't need me. They don't need me to be there reading at night. But that's such a good tip, and it adds to the conversation at the dinner table. I really love that. So I'm gonna bring that one home.
Your children will be thrilled with me.
I know. But it is good conversation, and they're good books they're reading. So yeah, why not?
Even if you're reading an article or an essay or whatever it is, so just some kind of stimulus to something that that they've read that's in the news, or
and just having a conversation about it, not needing academic analysis because that's what they're getting in their classroom, but more just talking about those characters as if they are real. I think it becomes a really stimulating discussion.
It's a great idea. It's not that we need to start the family book club. It's just more of just having more conversations with our kids. So it's a really good tip, actually. It's the first time I've heard that. So I do want to chat a little bit about the outside the classroom. And I know, Taishia, you've got quite a lot of insight in this as well, just in terms of keeping the passions and curiosity and things that are happening outside of the classroom. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about your focus on that and the school's focus on that?
Absolutely. So we commit to ensuring that our academic enrichment program is actually within curriculum time. So students have taught periods on academic enrichment every week. We devote 2 periods a week to the academic enrichment program. It begins in grade 9 and it goes all the way up until grade 12. It does obviously adapt slightly depending on where that student is in their academic journey. So grade 12, it looks a little bit different to our grade 9 to 11 program. But through that commitment, we've really built a culture of academic enrichment. And what I mean by that is that we have a seminar program that's taught and delivered by teachers who genuinely have something that they're really passionate to share that perhaps is not taught on their prescribed curricula. And so we've had seminars in the last term on anything from the geography of food through to inviting a journalist from The Economist in to discuss journalism today in this digital age. And having it within that curriculum time means that we can then ensure that the students are engaging. We allow students to opt in to what it is that they want to attend as well. I think autonomy is really important here. We talked earlier about productive challenge, and I think that students, they will find a kind of level of desirable difficulty in something that they care about, and having a really passionate teacher in front of them builds that care and that love of subject, rather than feeling that they are tied to a curriculum that they then have this, external exam at the end of it. So we allow student choice. It's a regular occurrence on our curriculum. And through that, it means that we've built this amazing culture.
It's amazing. Yeah, some unique things as well there. It's interesting because we meet with a lot of international schools at Little Steps, and it's just interesting the wide variety of interests that are now available to kids. It used to just be sports and a bit of music, and it's really nice to hear some of the other areas that you can focus in on.
Yeah, and I think what's happened as a result of that is that students themselves then want to emulate their teachers. So we've had also student-led seminars where a student has felt really compelled to dive deeper into an area of a subject that they're really interested in, and they go on to then teach other students about that area. So when it's student-led in that way, I think it kind of really shows that culture is so wide-ranging that teachers are so passionate that then infuses our students to emulate them, and that builds the culture.
Excellent. Yeah, it builds a lot of skills as well. Leadership. It's a transition year. We know that. There's a lot of TV shows built off those senior school years. But it's a time of transition. It's a time of independence. There's a lot that parents as well as educators are trying to instill in those students that are kind of passing through these years. I just wanted to look at the transition itself, and maybe Sarah, you can tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Transition into adulthood is a roller coaster. As a parent, you'll probably know this. You never quite know whether your child's going to smile at you or slam the door. And there will be some smug parents who are saying, my child never does that. But believe you me, one day they probably will. So be ready for it. And very good on you if you've managed to not do that. I think the best advice I can give to parents and it is to just be present for your child. Listen to them. Do not judge. Or don't judge out loud. Judge in your head, but keep it in your head, because we all judge and we need to try to hide that. But look, you need to keep those channels of communication open. We all know, I think, as parents these days, that we would hope that if our children were going through whatever that was, they had any concerns about anything, that they would want to come to us. Now, of course they don't. And they're never always going to be. There are going to be some things that they find really awkward. Anything you can do to just know, be present for them. There was a great sort of TV program in the UK, probably some time ago, where, it was about children who sort of went home to an empty house, and, teenagers want to go home. They don't want to be, asked questions. They don't want to, how was your day? Come and sit down with me, darling, and talk about it. At the same time, they don't want to go to an empty house. They want to know that you're there, you're present, but you're not actually going to interfere or intervene and all the rest of it. And I think that just knowing that you're there is the reassurance. And I think as a parent, don't beat yourself up. I mean, no one teaches us how to parent, and most educated parents will read the books and read the manuals and think that they know how to do it. But every scenario is different. Never work with humans or animals, I think is the advice. You just can't predict it. Just go with it. Try to be relaxed and understand that if your child's telling you what they think, that is hugely, hugely important, because you can coach them and do all those things which instinctively come well, but understand that there will be ups and downs. There will be days when they are worried. There will be days when they have friendships that are not going the way they want to. There will be days when they worry about the way they look. All of those things are completely normal, and you just need to be there to kind of remind them that you're there to support. It's unconditional. You have your expectations of them. You expect them to work hard. You expect them to do their best, and you understand that from that will come what comes. And I don't think any of us can ask more of our children than to do that and be that. So it's that's just important. Keep it level and don't worry.
I love that. In terms of the transition at the school itself, is there anything particularly that North London Collegiate School does? Obviously, you probably coach a lot of moms and dads they're asking exactly this question, but just from the school perspective, anything to add on the transitional period?
You mean when they're leaving school or when they're joining us?
I think maybe moving from the junior years into the senior years, that, kind of transition into more independent, more expectation, and kind of leading into some more stress.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah. Well, I hope that our students, we gradually, I guess we gradually introduce the stress. We try to manage the academic stress here. So, for example, we will have annual exams like any school does internally. We really try to downplay those. We don't want children sort of feeling that they must spend weeks and weeks working 24 hours a day to prepare for those. So we introduce those gradually in a limited number of subjects when they're younger. And obviously, as they get older, that increases, and they therefore get used to exams. And it's finding that balance between understanding what stress is, learning to manage it, and then gradually it increasing until they obviously sit their final IB exams in their final year at school. I mean, we're lucky, I think, that we have a junior school, and the junior school works really hard to prepare them for what lies ahead. And because we're a through school, we've got that joined up thinking. The expectations of the senior school are sort of well embedded with the students before. And I guess they're transitioning in the same building when they come to us. So it really doesn't feel that it's quite such a massive deal that it does when you normally sort of start secondary school.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Kind of talking all the time. It's your turn.
I've got some questions for you too coming up.
No problem.
Taishia, I think I would really love to hear about the pathways. I think we can kind of transition into the pathways. There's a lot of families that look at what are those pathways, the post-16 pathways like the IBDP, what foundations are important. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about, what foundations are important in your opinion.
Yeah, really great question. And I have grade 10 on my mind at the moment because I'm just taking them through that exact process from transitioning from the MYP into the DP. So when I say DP, I mean the diploma program. So we're obviously an IB school all the way through. We teach the middle years program across grades 6 to 10, and then the diploma program in our sixth form. And I think that means that naturally there are some great connections that we can make across the programs. And because we are a school, as Sarah mentioned, that it's not exams focus. We run annual exams at the end of each year, but they are very low stakes. And so that means then our grade 10 transition year can really become a year that's pre-diploma. We start introducing some of the core skills of the diploma program. And when we get them to try to make connections between an MYP requirement, like the personal project, which is a really huge extended project that students do where they pick something that they're interested in and they end up writing a 15-page report on it and exhibit it in front of parents and staff. But we try to show the skills that they're building there have connections to what they'll then face in the diploma program. And we also ensure that parents are really well informed about the diploma options that are available to students. Start that options process really early on. In grade 10, we get them thinking about how their current kind of curriculum would translate well into the diploma program. And they have a university careers guidance counsellor attached to their particular year group. So they get to know that counsellor initially, and then when they're going through this process of selecting what subjects they want to kind of specialise in the diploma, they have a one-to-one meeting with that counsellor just to make sure that everything the combination that they choose will work well for any future university pathway. And I think the fact that we use the IB as this vehicle to deliver our curriculum and our ethos it's really great in that, because there's that overlap across the two programs, but also it means that students, they step up into the diploma, and we don't have students feeling the pressure of it straight away, because they're really ready for it. That we have this breadth in our curriculum that we model in grade 10, that they then, when they step up into grade 11, because that's what the diploma is infamously known for, its breadth. Students have to select 6 subjects as opposed to A levels where they might be able to specialize in 3. That breadth is often looked at as, a real challenge and a hurdle. But our students, I think many of them are ready for that challenge. And that's precisely because of how we use that grade 10 transition year.
Excellent. Well, there are a lot of pathways. I mean, I'm quite familiar with the IB. My kids go to IB schools. I think it's a fantastic curriculum, but just wanted to get your feedback in terms of, of all the global pathways and curriculums out there. Why is it that IB is the right one for North London Collegiate School? I mean, you've been there for a while, so you must love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great. So when I first joined, like I said, I built the English curriculum, and the IB English curriculum is all about focusing on not just English literature and its kind of heritage literature, but also thinking more expansively about literature. And I think that that's what the IB recognizes, is that we want our students to be internationally minded. And the IB, the way that it's set up, the global context that we're expected to teach through in the NYP program, and then as they move into the diploma program, the additional aspects of the program, such as creativity, action and service, and the theory of knowledge course, the extended essay that they have to produce. I mean, they sound like extras, but I really believe that they help to produce these well-rounded students who genuinely care about what's going on in the world around them, who are internationally minded. And yeah, I love it.
I think it's a very modern curriculum, isn't it? It's, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, A levels are great, but they're very narrow. And we're a school that's really ambitious for our young people. We want to send them out to, first of all, go to the best universities in the world, and then following that, go and work for the best companies or set up their own companies and be hugely successful in every aspect of life. And I think that the IB, apart from any other curriculum they could do, really sets them up for that. It's so broad. It's demanding. Of course, it's demanding. It teaches them skills that will really stay with them for life. And look, I don't know lots of other world curriculums. I'm going to be honest. I know A levels. That's what I really know. And A levels are fine, but they are narrow and they are very focused in a very small area. You don't have to do anything else outside of them in order to progress. But if I see a child who's done the IB, I'm thinking, wow, you have juggled that. You've done these subjects. You've got the breadth. You've got the internationalism, and you are going to be a real asset to me as an employer, but also as a human in any organization, whether it's a university or wherever it is. And I just think that is immeasurable in terms of its preparation for young people in the life that they're going to have, that gives them that global outlook.
I can always tell with the IB students, they ask a lot of questions, right? I love that curiosity aspect. And they're not afraid to talk to adults, students of any age. They're just, how does that work? And what does that do? It's just so interesting to see it in action. So, you touched on it a little bit, but obviously senior school, moving into sixth form, you're preparing the kids of the future, right? Whether they choose university or move in a different direction. How do you feel that the IB curriculum prepares them for that? You touched on it, but maybe there's a little bit more to talk about there.
I probably can't say very much more, but I think that the expectations of them are that they are rounded individuals, and they develop organizational skills because they have to juggle their commitments, their workload, the CAS element, the coursework, the extended essay, all of those things give them a different dimension. And I think students who thrive in that are going to thrive anywhere. So, we know that probably for most of them, I think university is going to be an absolute breeze where they go off and they focus on their single subject. And then they get out into that world where all of those skills that they've developed as a sixth form student are going to be absolutely invaluable to them. Yeah, I mean, I've probably just repeated myself. I think there's little more to add other than it is a brilliant foundation for life, I think.
We've definitely had former students, or I have anyway, in my interactions with former students who have said that their university program feels easier than the diploma program that they studied at our school. So it is a great university, preparation course and beyond.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what you want to hear as a parent, right? Just like, but with all those transitions going on, let's make that part easy. So in terms of what we chatted about, we talked about the academic rigor, combine that with the support that North London Collegiate School has, the education, the educators, the passion, the student body, and the support that goes around with the community itself. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit about the community in the senior year school and how it supports parents and students?
So I think we're quite a small international school, relatively speaking. We have maximum capacity of 144 students in grades 6 to 10, and our sixth form is about capacity at around 100, and it's always a bit more flexible with numbers. And for me, that is hugely important. It's big enough that there are lots and lots of opportunities available to students, but it's also small enough that hopefully we are able to give all of the students access to those opportunities. And they're in relatively small classes and they are known. We're in one building. All of our staff are in the building. All of the students are in the building. We get to know them. We see them in the corridors. There is no escape for them. They are known. But just little things like, I guess we're slightly unusual in our school leadership group the student leadership group is called the Big Six. And, no rocket science there. There are 6 of them. In most schools, there's a head boy and a head girl, maybe. So we're picking our Big Six from a cohort of around 100. If you're in a school which is so much larger, you're picking those same number of children and giving them those great leadership opportunities, but their chances of getting it are probably significantly less, no matter how brilliant they are. We really look at all our structures and try to make sure that we are giving all our students opportunities. And I think the way we've set the school up, physically as well, but in the way we communicate with our parents, is that we're really open door. We know our parents really well. They're in the building a lot. We have huge numbers of coffee mornings covering various different subjects, but we just really encourage them to pop in and have a chat. And we've got this amazing building. It's a fantastic facility. And that the sort of entrance and the lobby is a vast space with a lovely cafe. And, if you catch me at the right time, I can always buy you a coffee. But it encourages parents to be a part of the community. And we do also run a lot of parent community events. Last night we had an iftar. We obviously have a big Chinese New Year celebration. We celebrate Deepavali and all of those things where we really want our parents to come in and be part of what's going on. So that's, yeah. And I think because we're a relatively small community, that's actually quite straightforward. So that's, really where we are. And for the children, it's sort of good because, their parents are in and out. There's no escape for them, but we all kind of gang up on them in the nicest possible way, just to make sure that nothing slips through the net.
From an academic perspective as well, we reach out to our parent community and they help supplement our curriculum. I mean, for example, we teach a kind of Things Fall Apart, which is a Nigerian novel by a Nigerian novelist. And then we've invited members of our community to come in and speak to our students who have that cultural background and can provide that cultural context. So there have been many examples where we kind of tap into our parental community to support us in delivering our curriculum as well, which I think is a really nice kind of feature of our school, is that the parents are also very willing to do that.
That's great. I think that is one of the perks of being, like you said, a smaller school. You really get to know what the parents can offer and bring to the table, because it is amazing when you tap into those resources and what can be added to the curriculum as well. So great. So we've been chatting for a while, so I'm going to wrap this up with a final question. Actually, I have 2. We talked a lot about healthy ambition. We talked about the school itself, the senior years, sustaining passions, building independence, and choosing the right pathway as well. Are there any final points that you would like to leave the audience with, and potential students and families that are looking at the school that we haven't covered yet, particularly on the senior years?
I think just from my perspective, when we're thinking about that transition from, for example, the NYP into the diploma program, just allowing your child to explore what they're passionate about and not always making decisions around what looks best on an application, instead kind of encouraging your child to be a really good applicant. And what I mean by that is that if they're genuinely passionate about something, allowing them to pursue that and seeing where it goes, rather than thinking that, this subject must be studied as a result of this outcome. So allowing your child to explore their interests and their passions and just seeing where that takes them would be my parting message.
Excellent. Well, I have one more question for you both before we truly wrap up. But just a reminder for those that have been staying with us or tuning in now, we are here with North London Collegiate School. We've just had a fantastic chat about the senior school years, but this is part of a 4-part series where we're covering all aspects of the school. So we'll be sure to share more of the links there, but also you've got ongoing open days, virtual opportunities to meet the school and have one-on-one chats directly with the likes of these two lovely guests as well. So
please do come and see us, because I think that you can't really get a sense of whether you think a school is right for your child without coming and meeting the humans in the building. And we, I think, are a very special community. And unless you come through the door, you won't realize just how special that is. And yes, you're right. We're here. We know that your investment in your child's education is probably your biggest expense, but also a really hugely important one. And we see it as a team effort. We're here to work with you to support your child through their education. We're interested in what you want for your child, and we want to support you in developing that. But 100%, just come and see us. And we know that we won't be the right school for every child. I think I always say to parents, go and look at lots of schools, because only then will you be able to judge where you think your child will fit best.
Excellent. All right, you ready for my final question? All right. I always like to just wrap up these chats with just a fun question. And the question to both of you is, with all of your experience, being a parent, being an educator, all the various roles that you've carried throughout your life, what is your definition of a great school?
My definition of a great school is a school where students want to come to school, where they're happy, where they're confident. And I know that from that, they will reach their potential, and that we do it, a school that does it in the right way, that encourages children, gives them really positive feedback, doesn't make it easy for them, ensures that they have really high aspirations. We have high expectations of them, but fundamentally they want to come into school every day, and we know the rest will work out.
Excellent. Taishia, what's your definition of a great school?
Everything of what Sarah's just said. And then to add to that we have teachers who genuinely care about what they're teaching, and that they are subject specialists. I think that's extremely important, and that they are passionate about, what they're teaching, but also then that they share that passion and try to infuse students through engagement with their subject. And I think that, we're living in a world where AI is on everyone's minds at the moment. I think one great feature of our school is that we don't put technology at the fore. We put learning at the fore. And what that means is that we have books in classrooms. We have, pens on pieces of paper. And I think that is so important in this modern age where learning is the priority. And that for me is what makes a great school.
Love it. Well, thank you both so much. I'm taking home the book club. That's going back with me. But thank you for sharing so much. It was very clear with what North London Collegiate School is all about in those senior years, and very insightful tips and chats. So I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next time on the Little Steps Insider Series.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.